Welcome to the Worth It Practice podcast. It's me again, Dr. Leah Kleonsky, and I am so excited about this conversation because I am here today with Carla Titus. And if you listen to as many podcast episodes as I do, or if you do the ones that I talk about in the Worth It newsletter, you will have seen her name before because she often comes on to talk to us about financial clarity in business. So Carla, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but I'm so excited for the conversation we're about to have.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Carla Titus. I'm the founder and CEO of Wealth and Worth Within. Yes, that is a mouthful, but so much meaning behind that. My background is in corporate finance, and what I tell business owners is we bring the corporate finance tools to a small business so they can thrive, grow, be more profitable, and really have the business work for them, not just take away from them, financially speaking, and then make it something that they want to do for a long term because they're profitable and they're actually seeing the results of it pay off.
Right. We have to see it pay off or it's no fun, right? Then it's just a lot of work and not any real reward.
Yeah, we absolutely like money around here. So if you're not in business to make money, I'm sure you're here for the impact, which is wonderful. And we want to fuel that impact, and that impact costs money. So we want to make sure you're making profit so you can keep doing it for a long term.
I love that you're saying that and making that point that if our business is not profitable, then we cannot sustain the work that we're doing, which I think people forget about, right? If we're burnt out and exhausted, then we can't have the energy to keep creating a business that serves the amount of clients that we can serve. Like, you have to take care of yourself and protect your energy and also have enough to pay people and market effectively and do a good job.
Yeah, often I see the generosity goes beyond themselves and we forget, hey, we also need to be generous to ourselves. But how can you operate a business on life support and try to pour into everyone else? They say you have to take care of yourself first. And that is true in business. And if you want to be able to help millions of people and impact people's life, which is more needed than ever nowadays with mental health issues around the world, then you got to stay profitable and financially viable to be able to sustain the long mission that you have to make that impact possible. And that requires, paying people and paying yourself and so many other expenses that go with that.
Yeah, what's so interesting is it's like how all doctors are their worst patients. I'll talk to ER physicians who won't go to their primary care doctor for anything. We never do what we preach, and therapists are the same, psychologists are the same, where we know I need to take care of myself, and then we still tend to put other people first to a degree that can be actually very problematic. So giving yourself permission to care about the business side is essential, and understanding the finances of your business is the only way to do that.
Yeah, and we get that you didn't get into business to handle the financial side, but that is such an important aspect of being able to do the work that you want to do. And so neglecting it or ignoring it is not going to make things better. It might get to a point where things get worse before you even notice. So we want you to pay attention to it. We want you to have what we call a financial treatment plan in place so that you're following your treatment plan and making progress and getting better. And then ideally it gets exciting and it produces the kind of results you'd never thought were possible, both on the impact and the money side of things. So it's not one or the other. It's really one working alongside the other and fueling each other up so that you could do more of this fulfilling work that's meaningful.
I know, Carla, that you are a fractional CFO, and I was sharing with you before we even started that when I, even probably until last year, did not understand what a CFO did. I was there running my practice thinking, what kind of help do I need with this practice? But because I grew it from the ground up, and it was just me for a long time, and then I have a great accountant who I can pull in when I need things, it's okay, things are starting to get overwhelming. Is there someone else I should be consulting? And I think that's how probably many of you feel, many of the people listening feel, where often our leadership team, if we are advanced, is actually an office manager. And after that, we don't know who to talk to when we need to make more complicated decisions. So can you talk a little bit about what a CFO even is, Carla, and why someone might need one?
Yeah, so there is a point in your business where maybe you've outgrown your own skill set of financial management, or maybe you're really good at it, but it just got more complex and complicated because there's too many moving pieces, right? When you make one decision, there is a ripple effect of 3 other things happening because of that decision. And so it's hard to weigh in, should I go down that path or not, without first looking at the scenario planning and really understanding what could be the consequences of that decision, either good or bad, because, there's both sometimes, and considering what might happen before you make that decision. And this is key because once you've made the decision, you kind of just deal with the consequences, whether it's good or bad. And often what I find is people are not looking at the data. They're looking at their gut instinct, which has gotten them this far, which is fantastic because holy cow, you made it this far with just gut instinct. How amazing is that? And then imagine if you could power it up with real data, with information where you're now bringing in a new perspective that you didn't know about your business. You had it in front of you all along, but it was hard to pull out because you didn't know what metrics to look at. How do you connect the dots between the metrics and the decisions I'm making? But you have and crave additional support. Like you're asking about, can I afford to hire? Can I pay myself more? Can I invest in this XYZ thing at the same time that I'm hiring and getting an office space? And these decisions are all interdependent and ultimately filtering down through your profit and loss statement. But you're probably not thinking about it that way because you're just like, well, I'm just making decisions, but every decision touches money. Even how much you pay your people, how much time they spend working on things, what you allowed in the negotiations for pay at the beginning. All of these are decisions that are ultimately going to impact your profit. So the job of a CFO is to help you not just navigate that, but really think about what is the growth strategy in your business. Like you might have some ideas. You're like, I might want to add services. I might want to get more office space and fill it up with more clinicians. But then the questions come, can you afford to do that from a cash flow perspective? Can you afford to do that now? Do we have to hit a certain milestone before we go after this? And the numbers start to reveal a lot of those answers. But it is the job of the CFO to do that analysis and help you make those decisions and think beyond maybe the ideas you had to more creative ways of achieving the same goal.
Yeah, I know that's what started happening with me, is that I felt like I had things under control and understood the ripple effects for a while. And then when you hit this certain level of revenue, usually I think it's probably right around 7 figures, or maybe, Carla, you're going to tell me it's even earlier than that. But suddenly the whole picture gets so much more muddled and confusing. And what you don't want to do is make a decision that's going to really hurt you in the long term. And I've seen people do that. I've seen people make more revenue and have their profit go down. And that's always my fear. Or make more revenue, but suddenly they're miserable running their business. And that's scary. Like if you have something that's good that you want to scale, that fills you with joy, you want it to do that sustainably. And you just like get in over your head, essentially, at a certain point. I don't know, Carla, when are you noticing people need that help? Is it at 7 figures, or is it usually earlier than that? Like when do you recommend a fractional CFO?
It can vary. We like to say around 2-3 years in business, 10 or plus employees. And that might be 7 figures. They might not. Because I think there's a lot of 6-figure entrepreneurs out there who have a 7-figure mindset and they're ready for it. And they're just like ready to make the investment and tap into that kind of expert support. But not everybody is in that position, right? So we want to make sure it's affordable. It's not going to put you into debt or cause other problems that are unintended. Ideally, the investment is going to more than pay for itself, as we will be able to help you navigate some of these big decisions that ultimately should put money in your pocket. That complexity starts to grow because what happens is you as a CEO are now needed in other areas. You are needed in the growth of the business. You're needed in the team management, sometimes in setting the culture. And those are very important things to ensure that the business runs smoothly and is delivering on its commitments, and you're holding accountability. And that takes a lot of time and effort. So it's not that you might not be able to do the financial side on your own, but you're maybe spending nights and weekends trying to figure it out and YouTube your way through it, or TikTok advice, which is not always the best, right? So you want to make sure you have reliable support that can take things off your plate, because this is a point in time where you start to outsource and delegate so you can free up your bandwidth to focus on the bigger things that move the needle in your business. And those are not always running the numbers per se, but being in tune with the numbers is very critical. So even when you bring an outsourced CFO to the table, and you know this, Leah, you still have the ownership of decision making. You still have the responsibility of knowing your numbers, understanding your numbers. What changes is now you have a different perspective, someone guiding you through it, someone helping you ask different questions and giving you some answers with data that now help you make a better decision. And even if the decision was the same, at least now you know what's going to happen on the other side of it.
Yeah, this should make everyone listening who listens to this podcast frequently think about the recent episode I did on the factors that I consider when I'm making a decision in the practice. And the decisions are almost always very related to math involved. And then at a certain point, the math gets too hard. The variables get over my head. And this is where you need that extra help, because you need someone else who also has some experience in other businesses. This is the part I think we miss a lot as psychologists or therapist entrepreneurs, is that everyone kind of is doing things the same way, and we don't look outside the industry. We don't look into like the greater business world where having a CFO or a fractional CFO is a normal thing to have. We're like, I don't know, I have an office manager and an accountant, and like, what is everyone else doing? And we stay so in our industry, we don't look outside. And I think it causes a lot of problems for us that could have been prevented.
Yeah, and this is very common because you have this support team already in place. So you're like, why is this not working already? Like, I already have people I pay money to, right? I have a bookkeeper, I have an accountant. Why are they not answering my questions? Why are they not proactively helping me plan forward in my business, not look backwards only? And that's because that is not their role, right? I mean, there might be some accountants that play on an advisory or consulting type of role, but the financial forward-looking piece is something that you're trained for. There's a skill set there, right? Just like you train for certifications, well, we've trained for uncertainty. And so we navigate every day based on assumptions, based on things we might not know about yet, and make our best estimation of what we think will be possible in your business based on a set of variables that we have co-created. And that gives us a path forward to map our goals, to set a direction, kind of put that address in the GPS, if you may, when you're trying to get somewhere. And it tells you, hey, by the way, that road is blocked, so you might want to take this other road, because then that won't slow you down. And then you might want to stop for gas before you run out. And so it's just helping you kind of make that trip more leisurely, because you know your destination, right? And sometimes I get a lot from people saying like, well, I set a goal and I don't hit it. I'm like, but did you work the plan? We take the actions necessary to make that plan a reality. And this is where business strategy meets operational, meets financial management. Is financial management and forecasting is not just about setting a goal and forgetting about it. It's setting a goal and then breaking it down and saying, here's the 10 things I will do that will make me more likely to achieve this goal. And that's what we do with clients, is we outline what are those 10 steps. Are we on track? Are we off track? We're measuring as we go. We're not just sitting back and waiting and hoping things will work out. We're actually making sure that we're course correcting and getting you closer to the goal as much as possible. Yeah, do we not hit all of our goals? Of course, sometimes we don't hit our goals, and that's okay. But guess what? You probably are better off than if you didn't have a goal in the first place.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. It's like if you're working out of the new year and you're trying to lift a certain amount of weight, you have to know what training program would get you there. And then you have to actually do the program. Although things could happen, right? You could get sick, like there can be barriers, there can be things you never thought of, but you're not even going to get close to that goal if you don't ever plan for it in the first place. Now, I know, Carla, you work with a lot of therapy practices. How many do you work with? Like what percentage of your business?
That's a great question. It's like 80% of our business is therapy practices all over the US. Yeah. We're very niche in the industry.
Yeah. So I'm now going to ask you a lot of detailed questions about what you're seeing, because I'd love to know the trends of someone who is working with so many different businesses. Are you seeing differences in the businesses that are insurance-based versus private pay-based?
Oh, definitely. There's a big difference in how we handle revenue growth, what we're seeing from them being busy or not busy with referrals. And it's different, right? It's not better or worse. It's just different. And I think sometimes we try to compare apples to oranges, and that's just not fair. They taste very different. Why would you do that? So you want to keep, when you're talking about private pay, conversation in focus, because you have an ability to increase rates, of course, based on the market, right? You're competing still, so you can't just be like that. I mean, you could choose to be the most expensive, but you have to deliver on that promise and value, and clients have to see that you're like the best and why you're the best. So like we can go as high as we want in private practice, right? Because as long as you can meet the buyer and find a buyer who's willing to pay for that, then there's not a ceiling per se. Of course, you want to be competitive and keep in mind what your competitors are doing, right? But with insurance practices, we have a cap, and not only is that cap dictated to us, but sometimes they are changes that come with it that we have to just take and absorb and figure out how to still be profitable even when those changes come that were not requested, good or bad, right? Sometimes it's a rate increase, sometimes a rate decrease. And when that happens, we are preparing scenarios and modeling what would this do to the average reimbursement rate of the practice based on how many clinicians and sessions we're doing with that type of carrier. And we can also say we choose not to work with them if it's not a big impact, right? So there's things we can do, but at the end of the day, when you're insurance based, you're a little bit more at the mercy of insurance companies and what they're dictating and the games they're playing, like holding off payments and maybe messing with your cash flow. And ideally in private pay, you're collecting upfront and in full, so you don't have this kind of issues, right? So it's a very different environment. And again, they're just different. So we want to navigate them accordingly.
All right, so if we're going to focus on the private pay ones for a second, since that's what we talk a lot about on this podcast, especially since my practice is private pay, is there repeated mistakes that you see group practice owners making, or specific advice you find yourself giving over and over again, specifically to this subset of group practice owners?
Yeah, so speaking of pricing, we should start there because I always ask, what's your pricing strategy and how did you come up with it? And then often I get, I don't know, I just like talk to a friend and I just set my rates. And I'm like, oh, well, I sure hope your friend is the exact same type of practice with the same specialization and number of years that you are providing your clients and the same amount of value that they're getting from that practice from yours, because if not, then maybe you should be priced differently. And this is where market benchmarking and really thinking about the type of population you're serving your clients to your patients. You cannot overlook the fact whether you're in a wealthy area or you're in a more affordable market. You have to take all of that into account as well. It's not just about price, whatever you want, but this is what we call pricing strategies. What are those areas we need to assess in order to bring in the price to the right place? The other one is compensation. This is always a problem no matter what type of practice is. They often want to hire and they're getting in clinicians one at a time. And there was not really thoughtful compensation structure or strategy thought out before we started hiring, because we're like, we just have to hire people, right? And they are asking for things and we're saying yes. And then before we know, we have 10 therapists getting paid 10 different ways. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but we do want to take a step back and look and say, hey, is this the type of alignment we want to have in the practice? Does this give us equity across the board? Is this compensating everyone the right way for their level of experience, knowledge, expertise that they bring? And sometimes the answer is no. And that's where we want to refocus our attention to compensation strategy and do some work around mapping out, okay, where's everybody at? Let's start with that. No judgment, just where is everybody at? Go look at the market, bring in some data for that and see, are we paying too generously? Are we paying just right? Are we below market? Because this is a different conversation we need to have. And then, can we afford to pay people differently is the next question, because you might want to make a change, but your practice might not be able to afford it. And so sometimes we're kind of met with our resistance on what do we do when we can't afford to do that. And then we get creative, right? We have incentive programs, bonuses, other things that we can give our team to compensate for the lack of pay. But those are the two biggest ones that I see often apply kind of across the board.
So it's sort of like a lack of solid research up front. What can I charge for these services that is high enough where people are going to understand my value and will provide the sort of a lifestyle that I need? And also, how can I pay people reasonably and make a plan up front? I think it's probably because these things make therapist business owners scared, because they're money focused and it's like, what is my value? And we've been taught not to charge for our services very much. And then we're afraid to underpay. So I think probably it runs right into the psychology of therapist business owners. I bet in other industries, this is not such a big deal. If we were in, what's another industry that would have this? Like attorneys probably aren't so anxious about this, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, they're better at managing profit because they're like all about the profit in some cases. And not to say we don't want to take care of our people, because I think that's where that's stemming from. And so sometimes we're faced with that challenge of, I don't want to change it because like it's really going to help my team and I really want to keep it. But if it's not serving the business goals, That's where I have a problem, and we try to challenge it and find ways on a path forward on how to adjust for that. And you're right, it is very much like in your mindset, what are you thinking you're doing wrong? Or are you underpaying people and you want to be hired just to make sure you're not? But there was no data with that. So it was just a thought that you had that said, hey, I might be underpaying my people, so let me just give them all a 10% raise. And all of a sudden you just set an expectation for next year to have that happen again, and there's no way we're keeping up with that. There's some things that definitely are fed from the owner's perspective of what's happening. Sometimes it's honestly the team is complaining to you. So like it's also not in your head. Sometimes it's your team is like, hey, you don't pay me enough. Hey, I am not happy. Hey, I need this, I need that. And sometimes their personal financial problems come to you as the owner for you to solve them, because they're like, I don't get paid enough. I have too many expenses. Either you pay me more or I leave. And it's like, that's not what the business can afford to do at all times. And if it's not merited, sometimes it's even more challenging to say yes in those situations. But owners feel like there's a perception, and you'll tell me if this happens, where you're getting rich off of them, and then you're sipping margaritas by the beach while everyone else works for you, and you're just running the payroll once a month, right? It's like, that is far from the truth, but that is the perception. And therefore, because of that guilt, you feel like you have to give more away just because.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. It luckily does not happen to me. I think because our private pay model, our clinicians are so well compensated, and they can see that I'm doing all these things they don't want to do. That's the only advantage to me of this economy, is it's so obvious. It is so obvious to them how hard I am working. But I think if that's not clear, then it's very easy to have that sort of illusion that you're just like hanging out and not doing anything, and they could all do better without you. And I also think a lot of people don't know how hard it is to be successful as a practice owner, especially in our current economy. It takes a lot of work, a lot of strategy, a lot of marketing. You can do it, but you have to be willing to put in a lot of that effort. And I find a lot of the clinicians who work for me at one point did own a private practice and realized that they don't want to do it anymore. They're like, yes, I would rather see these cases for you. You do the stuff that no one likes. And I'm like, I like it, but yes, it is the stuff that they do not like. And so that ends up working out. But I've seen that like observationally more in practices that are bringing on a lot of new clinicians and training them. So they don't have that experience of having been in the trenches as a business owner. So they don't know basically how good it is under certain circumstances.
Yeah, sometimes we say, like, let them go experience. They might come back. You never know. Let them go open their private practice. We wish them the best. We hope they're successful. You do you. We just want you to be happy, either here or not. That's okay. But we do need to be able to have performance and deliver. And even if you as a business owner weren't working that hard, I think you've also taken a risk. You left your cushy paycheck to go start something that's super risky, and you deserve to have good compensation, good profit. Otherwise, why would you do this? You would just go back to getting a paycheck and collect it, cushy job, and do the job, and not deal with all the admin and all the marketing, all the expense and worry that you have over being responsible for payroll and such. So there's got to be a reward that's commensurate with the risk that you took to start this practice. And so owners shouldn't feel guilty because their teams are coming to them claiming that they're owed more. I know it comes from a place where they're trying to solve their own financial concerns, and then they're coming to you and asking what's possible, and then you can then say, is there a business need that fits this request that we can then give them an ability to earn more in certain, and we do that often. We're like, hey, we have a need, can they meet that need? Okay, great, let's pay them more for this type of responsibility we're adding to their plate. And now it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is risky. I'm thinking about how over the weekend there was that winter storm, and I was getting text messages from therapists saying, hey, can you call and cancel my clients? So it's Sunday, right? And what am I doing? Because I have no admin on the weekends. I'm making client calls. That happens sometimes. And that's what happens when you're the business owner and you're trying to prepare everyone for those sorts of situations. And that's just part of it. And you accept that responsibility. And then you also deserve some compensation for having to be kind of the final line about what could happen in your business, right? You have to keep the business safe, and that's a lot of work.
Yeah, and now you're paying payroll for sessions that didn't happen because something completely outside of your control or your therapist's control, and they're not seeing that. They're not seeing that you're writing the checks to compensate them no matter what is going on. And that is part of why we need a reward and a profit so that we can do things like that when those situations happen.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I'm part of the entrepreneur organization, and Mike McCallus just came and talked to us the other week about profit. And it's just so interesting to hear the framing of it as like this is the reward for the risk that you took, because we do take a lot of risks. We do a lot of things behind the scenes, and we deserve to be well compensated for those things. It might make you uncomfortable even hearing me say it right now on this podcast that you deserve to be well compensated for the work that you do. But you do. Our clinicians deserve to be well compensated for the work that they do, and we deserve it as well. Well, Carla, I am so glad to have you on the podcast. How can people find you? By the way, I'm an avid listener of your podcast. Listen every single week. It's often in the Worth It Practice newsletter. So tell everyone about it so they can listen too.
Thank you. Yeah, we launched a podcast June last year, and it's been just phenomenal. The support we've received, we really appreciate it. So it's called CEO Financial Clarity Corner. And the goal of the podcast is to provide free educational resources to really help close the gap in the education you never got about the financial side of running a business that you wish you knew. We have topics ranging from what it's like to break a paycheck to paycheck cycle to what are the financial roles you should consider bringing into your business, different stages, support you can get, and just really clarifying the role of a CFO in helping you through your growth journey. So we would love for you to tune in there. And if you're more of a reader type, you can sign up to our newsletter on our website at wealthworthwithin.com. If you're looking for a fractional CFO, we would love to talk to you. Book a call, no strings attached. We just want to share what we can do to support your financial needs, if any, and if it's the right time, we would love to be part of your team.
Wonderful. I'm so glad you were here, and definitely listen to the podcast. I do, and I take notes.
Oh, I love it. Even action taker, even better.
Oh, always. Thank you so much, Carla, and thank you for listening to the Worth It Practice podcast, and I will talk to you all next week.